Welcome to Still Plays Galaxy of Heroes. This is the weekly talk. This week we are touching on these topics. We're covering the state of the galaxy, zooming into the galactic challenges, breaking down the clues that they give us, transitioning into pre-planning both for this week and then challenges in general, and then finishing up, as we always do, with free-to-play gearing my roster. So first up, state of the galaxy. It basically just covers the galactic challenges, but the overall things I want to touch upon is, one, this is good news. I'm very excited and optimistic. I do wish, though, that what they've long been promising of having an ability to create more varied events with this new tool set was not tied to this game mode. It sounds like it is basically about creating more and varied galactic challenges instead of more and varied events in general. I think that's a quibble, though. I'm not too concerned about it. I am, however, a little worried about CG's track record with actually executing on the things that they promise. It's been relatively poor up to this point. I can see a scenario where that they maybe create 20 locations, 30 modifiers, or whatever, and then we don't see any new locations, any new modifiers for a year and a half, 2 years, and after several months we become very used to the same kinds of modifiers and locations if CG is not regularly updating them and changing them. Hopefully that's something that is avoided and they are able to keep this fresh and new for a good amount of time. And before we break this down in general, I wanted to touch on the last point that they make, is that here they have removed the entry requirement for galactic challenges, which I think is great. For longtime players, that doesn't matter. Like doing your dailies, you can get that done in 5-10 minutes. It's not a big deal. But I think it's really nice for players who are level 60 to 85, where it might take a little longer to get through the dailies. Because for them to have to go into the game, do dailies just in order to access this game mode is kind of annoying when, those are going to be probably completed throughout the day, but why not play galactic challenges at the beginning of your day instead of having to do it at the end? And it's just more flexible for people's lives in general. So moving on to breaking down the challenges themselves. The game mode works where there's a location, there's an enemy squad, and then there is a player squad that is going to get a bonus that doesn't have to be used, but is definitely designed around using that player modifier. So we have location modifiers, enemy modifiers, player modifiers, and then these conditions are various feats that can be achieved. And what that allows us to then is work towards the rewards. And we're going to hit the rewards first before touching on that other portion. The rewards are going to be slicing mats, character shards, game currency, gear, and then mods. And it looks like there's going to be rewards per tier, and then also the same kinds of rewards broken down per feat, which we see in this last image here, where they have Zam shards and other gear and currency for also completing those feats. So it already looks like feats are going to be far more important to work towards in galactic challenges than they are in Grand Arena. So next up, I want to break down some of the clues that we're seeing from these different images that we're getting in terms of the in-game modifiers with location, players, and enemies. So for this first image here, they are showing that the Empire has a mechanic where there are shared stats, and that when a character dies, they are revived, and the character in the leader slot gets taunt for, I think it said, 2 turns. Which now starts suggesting to me that Palpatine or Thrawn, who we're typically using as an Empire leader, may no longer make sense, and maybe we're going to be seeing like Tarkin or Krennic now need to be geared up and used in order to take advantage of these modifiers, because, like, for instance, Palpatine is just a little bit more fragile than some other characters, so because of that mechanic with the taunt, Palpatine could be targeted and taken out. maybe not the case, but there's that potentiality there that I think we need to be aware of. Then if we move down and look at the modifiers that are shown just below, we have the enemy modifier on Separatists where they're getting increased speed, increased stats. That might mean that Grievous gets out ahead of the team, which doesn't usually happen. Usually Grievous is a little bit slower. And because of that, approaching a Grievous team or Separatist team might require completely different strategies. So that's also suggesting to me that using Galactic Challenges as a sandbox mode to test out new kits, to test out new characters, to just see how various factions do against various characters is going to need an asterisk, because these modifiers are going to change how we use them in Grand Arena, or not how we use them, but how we come across them in Grand Arena or territory battles or territory war. So we're not going to be able to use Galactic Challenges as a one-for-one comparison, but it's still going to be nice to see generally how the mechanics hold up, even though all these modifiers are going to change the specifics of the lessons learned. We also see here a global modifier with the Dune Sandstorm, that is the location modifier that is putting damage on the characters every turn. The player modifier we see here with Grim Machinations is a Sith modifier that when they take out a character, there's a stacking bonus damage that is happening, or if a character is lost, there are also bonus stats that are occurring. The last major piece is this calendar, but the calendar I want to talk about in this way. I'm a more visual person, and for me this is more helpful. So what we are looking at is a series of events in different lengths. There's going to be a 7-day version, a 3-day version, and a 2-day version, at least to start. Right now there's no clue if fleets are going to be a part of this. I'd like to see it, but right now one of the things that I do like is that we're not having this thematic difference between light side and dark side always confronting each other. We have different events where we have Old Republic against Rebel or First Order against Empire. So we're getting light side versus light side and dark side versus dark side with those modifiers, so we can really kind of play around with them and see. What we're seeing here, there's only one light side versus dark side matchup. Most of them are either light side, or dark side. So that'll be interesting, something that I was glad to see. I didn't want to have just these thematic scenarios that we're seeing to a certain extent in the assault battles. Next up, I want to transition into pre-planning for this event. So in general, from what I've been seeing with a lot of players, even at my 5.5 million GP level, is a lot of people aren't done with your farms. The first thing you want to do is finish up your farms. Even Cubs Fan Han, he brings up a number of times that he does not have Range Trooper done. I think the time in which you could just skip certain farms if they weren't usable at the time, that is gone. In order to really optimize your ability to tackle these events, I think you're going to want to make sure you have characters at 7 stars so you can at least be attempting or maybe finishing off different tiers at earlier levels. So that means Range Trooper. That might mean Visas Mar. It might mean the Resistance. Well, not those characters are needed for Galactic Legends, but maybe it means some of the Galactic Republic Jedi need to be finished up. Maybe it means Tuskens need to be finished up. Who knows what's going to happen down the line, but I think prioritizing finishing your farms is going to be important. In a similar way, widen and deepen your roster. That means, for me, Gear 11 is my staging ground. That's where I like to get everybody up to before I move on, and then I'll consider who I want to bring up to Gear 12 or up to Relics, but I try to get everyone I can up to Gear 11 sooner than later. Maybe that doesn't make sense for you where you are right now, but maybe that's Gear 8 or Gear 9. Get characters that you aren't using up to those levels so that you can start tackling these sooner than later. Zetas is a similar thing. Depending on when you started playing the game or at which stage you met certain thresholds, like after you unlocked certain epic confrontation characters or legendary characters, that may have meant certain other characters didn't need to get their Zetas or their usefulness had passed, like General Veers in particular or Jyn Erso. Like if you came across those characters and the Geonosis territory battles were released, you may never have put on the Zeta onto Jyn or to General Veers, and I think that time is over, where CG is going to be encouraging, especially with those modifiers that we were just talking about, certain characters get their Zetas, certain characters get worked on. And even in Grand Arena, I come across a lot of characters who don't have that General Veers Zeta. I think getting those troopers ready or other teams ready is going to be important. But hoard those gears and that gear and material. Like hoard the Zetas, hoard the gear, hoard the Omegas, because you don't know who you are going to need when. You want to be as flexible as possible. See what the modifiers are. See what the characters required are going to be. Next up is 5-dot mods, not 6-dot. You don't want to be locked in a scenario where all of your good mods have become 6-dot mods and you can't take advantage. This is something that I think I'm going to talk about in a future video, but I only take a mod up to 6-dot if it's plus 19 speed or higher. Basically, if that mod turns into a 20 speed mod, then I will turn it into a 6-dot mod. But below that, I don't. And what that has given me is a lot of flexibility when different things get released. It's why in my lowest viable team series, I'm able to put good mods onto my Separatist characters or my Galactic Republic characters for the gas event. Or on different assault battles, I've been able to run a lot of Gear 11 characters because I have really good 5-dot mods. Like if it's in that range between plus 15 and plus 18, those are staying at 5-dot mods and allows me to take a lot of Gear 11 characters and make them usable with those good mods. A lot of other players, they don't have access to that portion of their mod set for the lower gear characters, and I think that flexibility is going to be something you're going to want to maintain. And the last one we've already kind of said throughout this, but wait and see. Wait until you see what the location modifiers are, the player modifier, enemy modifiers are, before you start putting this gear on, putting those materials on. Don't do anything preemptively. See what the community comes up with strategies and optimal approaches to each of these different challenges that we'll be seeing before you start using those materials. And that's in general, like moving forward, it's going to make a lot of sense to just have gear and materials on hand so that for the next several months or years or throughout to the end of this game, that flexibility is maintained in your roster so that you can take advantage. Okay, so now I'm going to ignore my own advice and blow a bunch of gear prior to Galactic Legends being released. Part of that is I have a lot of confidence in how wide I have been building my roster. You see, like, I don't have enough relics because I keep blowing all of my Kairos on these new characters, and I'm going to blow a bunch of Kairos again on these new characters. Sith Trooper, Mon Mothma, Mandalorian. I'm pretty sure I can get all of them up to Gear 11 right now. I want to do that before the next round of Galactic Legends. One thing that I'm doing with these characters, you can see that the characters I'm developing right now, they're new characters. They're either helping me towards Jedi Knight Luke, and that's what Wedge is doing. Light Side Geos is why Cody is here. And then Holdo, I'm working on the Rey requirements, and Sith Troopers for the Kylo requirements. And then Mothma, Mandalorian, and Cara Dune are all because I try to prioritize newer characters, and just because I think those characters are fun and I want to get them usable as soon as possible. So that's what I'm doing for this week. So with Sith Trooper, it's a Cairo. 2 comm links and cuffs each. We're just taking him up to 11 right now, and we can be done with him. I'm going to just put on the easy pieces right now. I don't want to take him up to 12. But there's no reason these simple ones can't go on. Yeah, so that's it for now. I can take him out of favorites and move on. Mothma, I was looking at her gear. Gear 8 was tough with the 2 stun guns. This is tough for the 2 Kairos at this level, but it's a carb, 2 sets of Kairos. We're just going to do it, move on. We've been saving for a while. And then here, this 10 to 11, it's 1 more Cairo, but the other pieces, let me show you here, like this is easy. 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 And easy. I mean, it's 100 eyeballs, but eyeballs these days have not been as big of a problem. So going from 9 to 11 is not a huge deal. Mothma is now probably very usable for me, and I can just slot her in and start testing her and taking advantage. So we'll see here if there's any simple ones. This is a gear piece to be careful on. I've noticed that this was a gear piece I never had to worry about before, but with all these new characters that have been gearing up, they're using this piece, and they're also using that comm link that goes with the stun cuff that I used earlier. I'm noticing that those pieces were never a problem up until a few months ago for me. And now I'm noticing that the amount of those pieces I have is just not keeping up with how often I used to get them from raids. It may also be because I joined a new guild and I'm no longer finishing in the top 10 in a lot of raids if I'm not actively playing at that point in time. But we can take Mothma out of favorites. And now Mando, he's another one where the gear 10 is very easy. We just got to put on the stun gun. And now we can go through this and take a look here. It's a back to gel. It's a data pad. We've got the Cairo that we talked about. We're getting low, but I think it's worth it to get him usable. We've got this projector, an eyeball, and then I think the next one is another one of those comm links I was just talking about. So this is what I mean. These new characters are using this comm link. And I'm noticing that I'm not having the amount on hand that I used to have. So one of the things, I've been requesting that piece a lot more lately than I ever have in the past. But now we're going to take Mando up. He is now done for a while. I've already got him at 5 stars. He'll hit 6 stars by the end of the month, and sometime in September I'll have him finished with that farm. Well, let's look for, put on any of these easy pieces. We've gone through a lot of these, but we still have plenty. Okay. That's it for now. It looks like this is a stun gun. Oh, and Mark 6 stun gun. Alright, that's done for Mando, and now we've finished off a number of those characters. I'm going to move Cara Dune up into priorities, but I am going to star her up. She's someone I'm farming hard. I'm hitting that node 3 times a day. We're going through the refreshes 3 times a day. So I'll have her finished off hopefully by the end of August as well. And then I'm going to put this onto Holdo. We're not seeing anything in ships for the Galactic challenges, but I would not be surprised to see that become a requirement sooner than later. Or maybe it is and we don't know it. Alright, we got all these easy ones we can put on. We're going to leave this off until we have the stun gun ready, but I've looked at Holdo's gear as well, and after this stun gun, I can take her up to 11. Her gear was not that bad, and actually Rose Tico's gear is not that bad. I was looking at her gear recently, and she's another one I can take up pretty quickly. I think for my next priorities for gear, I'm shifting back to relics again. What I wanted to do was bring up Vader, but I don't have enough carbs on him. This piece that doesn't have the green is a carb. And the same thing with Malik, he needs a carb. And I've gone, I need to start replenishing my Kairos. But those are my next priorities, are getting those characters up to Relic now that I've finished off gearing a lot of those newer characters. Yeah, because that's now Mando's done. Grief Karga's already been done. I'm done with the Resistance heroes. I'm now done with the First Order characters, like Hux and Sith Trooper are now done. And by done, I just mean that Gear 11 threshold that I always talk about is my usable level. And then the only other character that I haven't gotten around yet, but will now become a priority, is 3 Baka. So I'm going to give him a favorite, because he's going to be somebody I'm going to be prioritizing. I have a lot of faith in that Mon Mothma team and her usability moving forward, at least in 5v5 becoming an important defensive team. I want to have her ready and really flummox my opponents as they come up. So that's going to be it for this week. I am very excited for Galactic Challenges and just having something new to talk about, something new to really experiment with on a daily basis, and be able to use that as a sandbox mode for a lot of these new characters, like the ones that I just geared up. With only that one caveat that I said earlier, is there will have to be an asterisk with testing out any of these kits and using that as a sandbox mode, but I'll take it. Anyway, be safe out there, everyone, and be excellent to each other.